The Center for Democratic Development has praised the efforts of INEC in the conduct of the governorship polls in Ekiti State. A member of the Organization Prof Shola Omotola made this known in Abuja as he presented the preliminary report on the Ekiti election. Omotola, who also commended the use of the Bi-modal voters accreditation system, noted that the technology was successfully deployed in most polling units. He also acknowledged the collaboration between INEC and EFCC in tracking and arresting people involved in vote selling and buying.
Generally, across most of the polling units in the 16 local government of the state, that most of those political parties had their their party agents duly represented. In some places, record had it that they had about 2 to 3 agents. In some other places, 1. I think it was just in 1% of those areas visited that they said only one political party had an agent there, and other parties were not represented by their agent. I think again, this is also commendable. Now, with respect to the application of technology, and I think the most critical one here has to do with the beavers, because it is used for accreditation of voters, either through fingerprint or your facial recognition. And from the report we got from our observers across the 16 local government of the state, again, it is really very, very impressive, because it shows that in the majority of those polling units, in fact, overwhelming majority where they visited, the beavers worked effectively in authenticating the voters. But that is not to say that there were no few exceptions. But the good thing, based on the report available to us, that in those few exceptional cases where beavers appear to have faltered, to have malfunctioned, technical officers were readily available, and within a very short period of time, they were able to resolve the issue, and those who couldn't be accredited or authenticated earlier on were later authenticated, and they were able to vote. And I think another significant point to note under the application of beavers is the length of time it took for voters to be accredited. Because if it takes too long, they may not be able to complete the voting process by the time stipulated by law. I think that is 2 o'clock. But across most of those polling units across the 16 local government, reports showed that they were able to complete the process according to schedule. And this was because the time taken for that authentication, at least for the majority of the voters, was either 2 minutes or lesser than that. So it was for a few other places that it lasted between 2 and 4 minutes for that process to be completed. And I think, again, INEC deserves a commendation for the effective functionality of beavers in the conduct of this election. But again, on the other hand, we have a few reported cases, but very few cases where beavers were said to have malfunctioned, they couldn't rectify it, and they still went ahead to allow people in those areas, affected people to vote. So, of course, that is a contravention of the Electoral Act, because what the Act stipulates is that once that beavers cannot authenticate you, you are not allowed to vote. But I think maybe some of those officers that were not adequately trained, or they just forgot the training they got and did something contrary to that. The level of vote buying in this election was not as widespread as what used to happen in previous elections in the state. However, there were also some reported cases of vote buying. But I think the good development about it this time around is that the collaboration between INEC and anti-graft agencies, particularly the EFCC, has actually proven to be positive, to be of positive effect, because we have reports from the field by CDD observers that some of those people who indulged in such acts, especially in Ekiti and a few other places, were arrested by EFCC operatives. And they have been taken to police custody. I think that's another positive development that I think INEC will do very well to see how they can consolidate and improve on the process. But I think, despite that positive development, the fact that parties to still indulge in vote buying, and you also have voters who are willing to easily sell their votes, I think it raises some questions about our political economy, especially issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, and again the point that CDD had earlier highlighted in their previous report, the question of the ongoing ASU strike, which has been on for close to 4 months now, or thereabout. And you have a lot of those young people, students, who stayed back in those university host communities without traveling back to their parents. So, and those who have lost, let me say almost lost their means of livelihood, the Okada riders, the taxi drivers, the market women, because of the closure of the university, they saw this election as an opportunity to get whatever they can get from the politicians.
Brief things regarding PWDs. We understand and we verify this, that in fact in many of the polling units there were available braille facilities to enable blind voters who have gone through the training for using braille to vote. I think we may need to make that point.
Thank you, sir.
The second point is that, I think what he was saying was that the real report today that vote buying, but maybe that was before election day. So I think we need to separate that. We know everything's going before election date, so we need to be careful. But what we're saying is today, very little of it was observed. But what is also interesting is that the other side of vote buying was virtually absent, voter intimidation. I think we need to make that interview. And vote buying itself is now more, it's more difficult to trace. And you cannot link people being given money on how they voted. Because it's not an idea will get their money but don't vote. So we need also see, and it is more difficult now to ask for evidence of voting when people are much more alert to that. Show us you voted and we'll give you the balance. So I don't think that was something that happened today.